Have you ever stopped to think about what a memory actually is? It is not a physical object you can hold, but it is one of the most powerful things we possess. Think about the smell of your favorite childhood meal, the melody of a song from your first dance, or the feeling of warm sun on your face during a perfect holiday. These are all memories. They are the invisible threads that weave together the story of our lives, shaping who we are, what we love, and even what we fear. Without memory, every morning would be a blank slate, a confusing puzzle with no past to guide us. We would not recognize our family, remember our name, or know how to perform the simplest tasks like tying our shoes or reading a book. But how does this incredible process happen? How does a fleeting moment, a laugh, a conversation, a sight transform into something that can be stored in your mind for days, years, or even a lifetime? The journey of a memory is a fascinating trip through the most complex object in the known universe, your brain. It is a process that involves billions of tiny nerve cells, electrical storms, and intricate chemical changes. It is a story of capture, storage, and retrieval. In this video series, we will embark on a journey to understand this magic. We will explore how your brain takes an experience and turns it into a lasting impression. We will also tackle one of the most universal and frustrating human experiences, forgetting. Why do we forget where we put our keys, a person's name, or even details from important events? The answers are as surprising as they are enlightening. So, let us begin at the very beginning, the moment an experience is born, and trace its path into the vault of your mind. The journey of a memory begins with your senses. Right now, your brain is being bombarded with information, the light from this screen, the sounds around you, the feeling of your clothes on your skin, the temperature of the room. This is the first and most temporary stage, called sensory memory. Think of it as a high-resolution buffer, holding a perfect but extremely brief image of everything you perceive. It lasts for less than a second for sight, this is called iconic memory, and a few seconds for sound, echoic memory. Your brain uses this as a filtering system, deciding in a split second what is important enough to pay attention to. The information that you consciously notice is then promoted to the next stage, short-term memory. This is your mind's temporary workspace, like the RAM in a computer or a sticky note on your desk. It is where you hold a phone number just long enough to dial it, or where you keep the first part of a sentence as you read the rest. But this workspace is very limited. Classic research suggests it can only hold about 7 pieces of information, plus or minus 2, for about 15 to 30 seconds without rehearsal. If you do not actively think about that information, by repeating the phone number over and over, it will quickly fade away and be forgotten. This is a crucial bottleneck. Your brain cannot possibly remember every single detail you sense in a day, it would be overwhelmed. So, short-term memory is the gatekeeper, deciding what is worthy of a more permanent spot. The key to moving a memory forward is attention and rehearsal. When you focus on something and actively work with it, you are sending a signal to your brain that says, "This is important. Save it." So, how does a fragile piece of information from your short-term memory, like a new friend's name, become a stable, long-term memory? This is where a small, seahorse-shaped part of your brain, called the hippocampus, plays a starring role. The hippocampus acts as a kind of save button or a filing clerk for your brain. When you consciously focus on information and think about it deeply, a process called encoding, the hippocampus gets to work. Encoding is not like saving a digital file. It is more like constructing a new network. The hippocampus helps to bind together all the different elements of an experience, the sights, sounds, smells, emotions, and context, and distributes them for storage in various regions across your brain's cortex. The visual parts store what you saw, the auditory parts store what you heard, and so on. The hippocampus then creates a kind of index or address book that links all these scattered pieces together. Think of a memory of your last birthday party. The smell of the cake is stored in one area, the sound of laughter in another, and the feeling of joy in a third. The hippocampus holds the map that connects them all, allowing you to recall the event as a single, cohesive memory. This process of strengthening a memory is called consolidation. Initially, a memory is fragile, like wet cement. But over time, especially during sleep, the connections between your brain cells are strengthened, and the memory becomes solidified, like hardened concrete. The more you recall and think about a memory, the stronger and more durable these neural connections become. This is why studying over multiple sessions is more effective than cramming all at once. You are giving your hippocampus multiple chances to reinforce that neural network, making the memory stronger and more reliable. Once a memory has been consolidated, it is theoretically stored for the long term. But where is it? Long-term memories are not stored in one single location like a filing cabinet. Instead, they are distributed networks across the vast landscape of your brain. The visual components are in the visual cortex, the emotional tone is linked to the amygdala, and the factual details are in other cortical areas. The hippocampus, which was so vital for forming the memory, becomes less critical over time for storage. For very old, well-established memories, the cortex itself holds the complete network. The act of remembering, or recall, is the process of your brain using the hippocampus's old index to reactivate that same pattern of brain cells that fired during the original experience. It is like your brain is retracing its steps to reconstruct the event. This is a reconstructive process, not like playing a video recording. Every time you recall a memory, you are actually reliving it to some extent, and in doing so, you can potentially alter it slightly. You might add details from your current perspective or forget a small piece. Then, when you save it again, the slightly modified version becomes the new memory. This is why memories can change over time. There are different ways to access these stored memories. Recall is retrieving information without any cues, like answering a fill-in-the-blank question. Recognition is identifying information from presented options, like a multiple-choice question. It is much easier. And relearning is when you learn something a second time, and you learn it much faster, showing that a trace of the memory was still there. The strength of the original encoding and the frequency of recall both determine how easily you can pull a memory from the vast library of your mind. Forgetting is not always a sign of a bad memory. In fact, it is a normal and even essential function of a healthy brain. Imagine if you remembered every single license plate you ever saw, every random conversation you overheard on the street. Your mind would be cluttered with useless information, making it hard to find the important memories. Forgetting helps us prioritize and stay sane. But why do we forget the things we want to remember? There are several key reasons. The most common cause is encoding failure. This simply means the information never properly made it into your long-term memory in the first place. Where did you put your car keys? If you were not paying attention when you put them down, the memory was never encoded. Your senses registered the action, but your brain did not process it deeply enough to form a lasting memory. The information was in sensory or short-term memory and then vanished. Another major theory is trace decay. This idea suggests that memory creates a physical trace in the brain, a pattern of neural connections. If this memory trace is not used for a long time, it slowly fades away and disintegrates, much like a path in the woods that becomes overgrown if no one walks on it. This explains why we forget details from our early childhood or skills we have not practiced in years. A third, and very powerful, cause is interference. Sometimes, memories compete with each other. Proactive interference is when old memories make it harder to remember new ones. For example, if you have had the same phone number for 10 years and then get a new one, you might find yourself accidentally giving out the old one. Retroactive interference is when new memories overwrite or disrupt old ones. For example, if you study for a history exam and then immediately study for a geography exam, the geography facts might interfere with your ability to recall the history facts you just learned. Beyond simple failure or decay, forgetting is also influenced by our motivations and emotions. Have you ever noticed that you easily remember happy events but struggle to recall boring ones? Or that you might conveniently forget a chore you did not want to do? This is where psychology plays a big role. Motivated forgetting is a theory, popularized by Sigmund Freud, that suggests we sometimes subconsciously block out or repress memories that are painful, traumatic, or anxiety-provoking. It is our mind's way of protecting us from psychological distress. A more common and relatable concept is retrieval failure. This is the "it's on the tip of my tongue" phenomenon. The memory is stored in your brain, but you cannot access it at that moment. Often, this happens due to a lack of a strong enough retrieval cue. A retrieval cue is a trigger that helps you access a memory. It can be a smell, a sound, a place, or even an emotional state. This is why walking back into the room where you had a thought can suddenly help you remember what it was. The context of the room acts as a cue that reactivates the neural network. Finally, we must mention a very specific and physical cause of forgetting: amnesia, often resulting from damage to the hippocampus. Anterograde amnesia is the inability to form new memories after the injury, while retrograde amnesia is the loss of memories from before the injury. This tragic condition highlights the critical role our brain structures play in the memory process. In conclusion, memory and forgetting are two sides of the same coin. They work together to help us navigate the world. Memory allows us to learn, to love, and to build a sense of self. Forgetting allows us to let go of the trivial, overcome trauma, and focus on the present. It is not a perfect system. We will all forget names, lose our keys, and struggle to recall a fact we know. But this imperfection is part of being human. By understanding how this incredible system works, we can appreciate the memories we have a little more, and be a little kinder to ourselves when we inevitably forget. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the mind.